Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
In today's episode 156 of Podcast 2 for 1, youtube.com/2for1 studios, the best place to consume the content. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you're updated on all future episodes of Podcast 2 for 1. And if you didn't know, and let's be honest, you probably didn't, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Cole Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. They have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year. Kapow. Daniel, it's episode 156, and after our great episode with Jason Miller to talk about The Last of Us and the series as a whole we're back to where it all started, The Mandalorian. We've done 2 episodes reviewing the first episodes, and we had a small hiatus, and we're back reviewing episode 3 and 4, and just also kind of looking at the first half of season 3 here in general, and our overarching thoughts here. And I haven't really talked to anyone about this. We haven't talked privately in our chat. Honestly, I wouldn't even know if you've seen the episodes if you hadn't showed up here today to talk about it. So
yeah,
we haven't
true.
talked about it, right? So I have thoughts, lots of thoughts. And I would love to hear yours first, though. Episode 3 and 4,
yes,
they're both very different, but if you can kind of talk about both of them a little bit individually, and then just kind of where we're at, also how you feel about so far the first half of the season.
Well, if you'll remember, listeners, faithful listeners, if you'll remember, my thoughts on episode 2 of The Mandalorian season 3 were quite positive and quite a turnaround from episode 1, which to me felt meandering and pointless in some ways. Episode 3 kind of reversed the course on that in a lot of ways, that like a lot of the things that I liked about episode 2 just completely went away for episode 3. And oh man, first of all, just the format. You have these bookended little action sequences with Mando and Bo-Katan and them fighting, I guess, the TIE interceptors, which is like, Disney Star Wars is good with action sequences. They make the action sequences look good, sound good, kind of feel good, But even while I was watching what felt like a 10-minute space battle, and I was, I was asking myself, like, why isn't this gripping me more? It looks great. It's got a good like pace to it. The cutting's nice, whatever, it checks all the boxes of like traditional filmmaking or editing or action sequence, whatever. And then I just realized, I was like, because it feels stakeless, right? Like it feels like, when action sequences work, it's because they're motivated by like the energy and emotion of the story. And like, it feels like cathartic because it's building to something or something like that. And I felt like this one was pointless and just was like, okay, they had to fight TIE interceptors, but they got away, kind of thing. And I think I was also a little confused that they just got off Mandalore like the second episode after they got on it, because that seemed like such a big point. But then we get to this middle story of this episode that felt like a CW show for me in a lot of ways, in terms of almost all of the story happened through dialogue between 2 people. That was the majority of every shot, was a 2-shot and 2 people talking back and forth. It felt like it was trying to, I don't know. I get that, like, and I like the idea that, like, the Empire and the Republic aren't actually that different, right? They're just kind of 2 sides of a similar coin. But sometimes it feels like, and especially with this story, they're trying to shove that narrative down our throats. And they're doing it in a tell, not show way. They're doing it by having characters talk, and then one character betrays the other at the end, which was an interesting, like that part was like the most interesting part of the episode, right? But still, like, it didn't feel earned from everything that came before, right? It didn't feel like, oh, that was worth it. No, I just spent all these time with these characters that are fine, not remarkable in any way. And they're just trying to tell me like the world building lore of they're just trying like they're trying to expand on the lore of this time period. And I just thought it was just kind of a really uninteresting choice. And I think, I'll get into episode 4 in just a sec, but like, to me at this point, my feeling is like Disney's Star Wars problem is that they're cutting corners at the idea stage is what it feels like. They're not cutting corners in production. And sometimes like, when you get to a film, when you're making a film and you have a budget and you have ideas, sometimes like the circumstances that you're in force you to like make different decisions than you planned on, right? And sometimes those can be like good, and sometimes those can turn out maybe to be not as good as you hoped. But it feels like so much of the time it's just like, this was the best idea for like this. Like this was the best I get. We need an episode that delves into like how the gray area of like how did the Republic treat Imperial prisoners, whatever. But I guess I'm just like, there's so much better ways to do that than like what they did. You know what I mean? And it just feels like a kind of boring plan, a kind of a boring idea of an episode. And that to me feels frustrating. You know what I mean? It's not like execution was great. It's just like, that was the idea. Okay. Episode 4 was better in that it was less talking. And I guess it kind of gave us a clearer idea of where maybe this season is going. But I still feel like we're almost halfway through. Is there 10 episodes, I'm assuming?
There's 8.
Is there 8? Okay, so we're actually halfway through. The story up to this point is so disconnected for me. Like Mando's in this first planet with the guy from the first season, and then the guys want to drink in the school, and then that's over, and they run away, and then they're like going to Mandalore to bathe in the waters, and they've already done that. Now they're away, and now they're like training baby. To me, like it just feels like, at least at this point, it doesn't feel like it's building to some like grand finale that's going to tie all the loose ends of this season together and make it feel satisfying. To me, it feels like piecemeal storytelling in some ways. And listen, I'm perfectly ready and willing for Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni to just make me a fool for saying all this, and just like the second half of the season is just gloriously, thematically perfect, and all this it fixes all the things that came before that I had problems with. But I guess like I don't expect that. At this point, I feel like I'll probably feel this way about it at the end of the season, even though there are cool moments, right? The episode 4 flashback to the Purge, badass. I loved it. I loved watching a Jedi with 2 lightsabers and like the battle and just seeing Coruscant and stuff. That was for me, right? Like as a fanboy, like that was awesome. And I'm sure there's going to be moments like that in the season where I'm like, wow, that's super cool to see that or hear that. But at the end of the day, if it stays like this, it's going to feel like it's not matching its potential. And that's frustrating. That was a lot. So your turn.
No, I mean, I think you basically took almost all the words out of my mouth. I mean, I hate feeling this way, like about Marvel and about Star Wars. I mean, Star Wars is a little different than Marvel for me, but just because I have been disappointed with Star Wars in different ways in the past.
Right.
And Marvel's kind of a fresh burn for me recently with the MCU in particular. But The Mandalorian was always kind of like, the last 4 years of our life, 3 years, 3.5, has been like this staple of like, oh, I can always count on Mando to come in. I can always count on that to be good Star Wars. And I think there's just a lot of issues. I mean, I think just talking about episode 3 real quick, this kind of ties back into something we've said recently, and we even said last episode on Last of Us, another Pedro Pascal show, is that I am getting tired of these like sideways episodes that have nothing to do with the actual narrative. And I think obviously they're setting up something, the return of Moff Gideon in some way, but they're talking like, even the ex-Imperial people are talking like, well, maybe he escaped, like it's a rumor he escaped. I'm like, we saw that off screen. Like that would have been awesome to see. Like what you do is you have an episode where you have these Imperial people do an escape from Moff Gideon. If you want to do a side episode, you break Moff Gideon out of prison,
Yes.
and still have these
Yes.
character arcs going on. But anyway, I still think like spending a whole time with Dr. Pershing, which is a guy we saw him, I think, a little bit in the beginning of season 2, or he was mainly in season 1, right? I don't remember him being much in season 2 at all. Maybe I'm wrong.
Was he in it? Was he? I'm thinking of that heist episode where they broke into like something. Was he in that one, like in the Imperial Science place where they broke in? They did that. Was that Mando? Was that season 2 Mando, or was that like Boba Fett? That wasn't Boba Fett.
I think that was Mando season 2, and I think that was an episode. That was Carl Weathers' first episode he directed, I believe. And I think that was the same episode where we saw like this possibly Snoke with the Snoke score.
Yes,
which is reminiscent of this, right? I think like this feels like a little bit of, for whatever reasons, Favreau and Filoni are kind of filling in some gaps for the what I think it's what the New Republic, or what's that the bad guys in the sequel trilogies, the New Republic. I can't remember what their name is.
And the
First Order. That's
First Order and the New Republic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's like laying the groundwork a little bit for the First Order, and then also Moff Gideon's return. And it's kind of like, obviously the cloning stuff is tied to Baby Yoda, and it's clearly tied to Snoke. If I don't know why they would do his score over a Bacta tank or whatever it is. So I just, I think like, to me, one, they are tying into things that we don't particularly care about, which is always kind of the fear that we've talked about. Like they're tied into stuff that ultimately we've, as a fan base, don't care about too much because it just wasn't satisfying and didn't do the things we wanted to do. Then also, this show is called The Mandalorian. It's not called The Mandalorian and Dr. Pershing. So I think, give me a comic book about, or a novel about Dr. Pershing and all the things he did. That's fine. That's what that stuff's for. Yeah. But when it's The Mandalorian, again, we have real estate here. We had a 1.5 year break from season 2, and it's like we want every second to feel value to the story. Again, I think it's leading to Moff Gideon returning, but there's so many more interesting ways to do that than have this thing that Andor just kind of did 6 months ago, but way better. Where we're talking about politics and, everything else. And again, Andor is not really for everybody. It kind of took me a little bit to get into it in the beginning, but when you're into it, I think you're into it. But this episode, it's not, it's the wrong show inside this to be inside this episode, or it's wrong episode to be inside this kind of show. And so episode 3, I was really disappointed with, because we just had this big thing with the Mythosaur and Bo-Katan and Mandalore. And then we're, again, like you said, we're just having these action openers. It seems like they're just like, hey, we got to have some action in every episode. And you're right. They're like, they nail it. They're super cool. They're like super fun. But I'm kind of feeling the same way. I'm like, I don't feel any emotional stakes, because season 1 was so riveting because we had this new thing called Baby Yoda, and they end up keeping it under wraps. And so we're like fascinated by, it's so dumb, we're fascinated by this baby version of Yoda because we're fans and just nerds, and we want to know if he has force power. So it's like every episode we're getting like we're getting drip fed like little tidbits of like things. And his overarching mission, season 2, and I think we talked about this a little bit too, is like we're the story goes slowly even in season 1 and 2, but season 2, like, we're seeing their relationship grow. And now that's already, we've reached the emotional apex of both Mando and Baby Yoda, which is, it's like watching a buddy cop movie, and then we're at the point now, we're at the end of the movie where they're a team now. They've went through their troubles, they're a team, and how do you do sequels is that you make the world around them challenge their relationship. That's how you do buddy cop stuff.
Sure.
That's how you do family sequels. That's how, like Guardians of the Galaxy, Shazam, or whatever it is. That's how you do those kind of things. And we're not having anything really challenge their relationship now in season 3, because that's how you do that. And so I think the emotional core is kind of missing a little bit there. And then the story they're telling, it feels like it's not really about Mando anymore. And again, it's called The Mandalorian. They could do a stupid fucking thing, and 6 years from now, like, it was always about Bo-Katan. But I'm like, so it feels like she's almost more of a character than Mando is. She's getting christened along with him. She's having,
well, she has an arc this season.
Yeah, she has more of an arc, I feel like.
I mean,
than
she's on an arc,
Mando.
a clear arc she's going on. We don't know where she's going to end up, but like she's on a
Yeah.
clear journey that is again one of the other interesting parts of like that was good. I actually enjoyed that part. Like, okay, it's dynamic. It's a character that's been here and done that and all this kind of stuff, and now they got to figure out what they want in life anymore. And like, do they want to? Is it okay to like adhere to what they might feel as like archaic rules in order to like gain a family? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's like that's interesting. And you're right. Like it just feels like Mando. I mean, he's still the one that always saves the day, right? He's still the one that gets the kid and rescues him from the flying pterodactyl thing, right? Like he's the one that, he's the one that saves the day. He's the one that's always there. He's the badass. But I think there was something like season 1 Mando felt brutal to me, right? And he felt kind of like he's a bounty hunter. He gives no fucks. He puts people in carbonite. Like he's there for himself. And I think
he did, didn't he? He carbonated that guy. Episode 1 was badass. Man, that was badass.
And I think like I get that like the arc of the Mando and the kid is like, yes, like in finding basically a surrogate child son, he softens up and he's becoming more fatherly or whatever. But I just, at the same time, he's lost a level of just like coolness and interestingness. And like, you're right. Like the plot isn't about him anymore. It really doesn't feel like, I mean, it's about Yoda. It's about Bo-Katan. It's about the other Mandalorians. It's about probably Moff Gideon in the end. You know, and it's like, it feels so much like Mando season 1 had a purpose. We're telling the story of a Mandalorian bounty hunter encountering a force sensitive child and what that grows into, like starting from a job, turning into a relationship. That's the growth. Right. That's the arc. And I feel like now the Mandalorian is just kind of like this, like Star Wars cash cow. That who needs something with what do we need to do? We want to do something with the universe? Oh, cool. Let's just throw an episode of The Mandalorian. No, it's cool. We'll just do a quick episode. I mean, we got plenty of time. Like, you know, we do whatever we want with The Mandalorian. Everyone eats it up. They love Baby Yoda. You know, they'll always watch it.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't think like, these are corporate Disney executives doing this stuff. I think this is 100% Favreau and Filoni.
I agree, but the way they're doing it is this like, it feels clumsy. It feels like it wasn't the best idea in the room. It feels, and to some degree, I do think that like this is probably their assignment, guys. We fucked up on the Disney sequels. We need you guys to fill in some gaps and make them more popular again. What Disney is seeing is like, look, the prequels are popular again. They're still getting watched. They're still getting streams. They're still getting like all this stuff. And Filoni did that, right? He basically did that by himself with the Clone Wars. Guys, just do it again with our sequels. Fix them for us so they can be profitable again. Like, I would not be surprised if that's not at least a part of their
100%.
Their mission,
you're right.
Right? And
I agree.
Yeah.
Someone's had the conversation at least once at some lunch somewhere. I mean, because here's the thing. I would too. You know, like I get it. Like it's that's the smart thing you do. The trick is doing it in a good and satisfying way, which is really hard to do. Now, episode 3 to me was just kind of like, holy crap! Like I wasn't enjoying watching it. Honestly, I was just like not there. And like there's even I was thinking about as you were talking, I was like, what does this remind me of? Oh, it's Blade Runner, where he's like checking into a droid and is checking his mental health and everything, and it's. You know, it's what that is. It's just ripped from Blade Runner 2049 is what the whole thing is. But episode 4, yes, you know, we're back with them two. We're at this like new place where the Mandalorians are hiding out, which let's just real quick kind of break this down. Just real quick.
Please.
So we just saw like in a previous episode, right, where they're attacked on the shore here by an animal. And they have they just hang out on this shore and they have no sense of security or anything.
No.
And they also say like, oh, this has happened before. Like, and so like, and they fly out with their jetpacks and they lose their fuel and they say it always gets away. That's what they said. So it's like, oh, so you guys know when you chase after it, you only get so far with your fuel and your jetpacks. And so they only get so
you
far
stayed
with
here.
It.
And did set up no defenses
no defenses. They've done the jetpack chase after thing a few times, and then Bo-Katan has a ship and goes after him. It's like, where did you guys do? Did you guys teleport there? Like, you guys have ships too, you know? And then,
Presumably.
you know what I'm saying? Like, and they
Yeah.
get there, and then it's supposed to be like, I think 24 hours since
Yes.
he got kidnapped. But when they get there, the bird regurgitates him right there. So he was inside the bird for 24 hours.
Dissolving
You know,
an
I mean,
acid, I'm sure. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you could argue his suit,
you know,
kept
like
him,
it.
but yeah.
I mean, well, yeah, whatever. But I'm saying, like, just this small thinking alone, right there on my part. I'm sure there's more issues. It's like that's the best way, and obviously the whole point of this episode, obviously, is to position Bo-Katan in a place of respect in the tribe, and to position her as a leader of some sort, right? Because which now makes me feel like even more like Mando will not be the one who wields the Darksaber or the one who unites the Mandalorians.
Probably
which
not.
you know, you can always argue he never wanted it, so why would you give it to him? And that's her thing. And Bo-Katan's also a Filoni, project.
Creation,
So it's like I get that, but again, it's certain. It's like, again, what's Mando? What's his point? What's the point of Mandalorian here? And it's cool seeing Baby Yoda. I guess it was a big thing, like who rescued him. And the cool thing was like somebody we knew, right? That was kind of the thing. Now, granted, I think it's awesome they brought back. Well, I think some of the discourse online was like, oh, it'd be really cool if it was this character or Ahsoka or something. Obviously, that got debunked as we went on the show. But it was always kind of like a small little mystery, right? Which I think that's a cool thing. But to me, that who gives a fuck who rescued him? I mean, like, I don't give a shit.
The cool part
was
it like basically Yoda going like reliving a trauma experience is what I thought was like, and the way they incorporated it in, I liked. Like that felt like a very good way to incorporate a flashback sequence that was pretty short, but a really like it felt natural within the story. It didn't feel like we were cutting away from stuff we were like wanted to know about. Like it felt good. And what? Go ahead.
I was to say, yeah. I mean, I agree that it's good. I mean, I think it's awesome seeing, and that's the guy. You know this, right? That's the guy who played Jar Jar Binks. Awesome.
Oh wow, I didn't realize that. That's super cool.
So like, that's a super cool thing to give him. And like, also I didn't know this, but he played that Jedi in a Star Wars trivia game where he's like where he had a droid or something, but it's like a live action trivia show or something that happened somewhere. I don't quite know about it, but he did that like 10, 15 years ago, and they brought that character into this show.
Cool.
Awesome.
I didn't realize that. That's cool.
I think it's super cool to give that guy another chance because he got treated very poorly for he did nothing wrong. He just followed orders, and then he gets the brunt of all of it, right? So that's awesome. And he looks like a badass. He did a great job. I think it's a cool little thing there. But again, it's like, how many times have I seen Jedi be killed by stormtroopers and Jedi fight stormtroopers? It's like, that doesn't really tell me much about. I mean, we already saw part of this already, like last season when Baby Yoda was at the thing. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know. I just feel like I didn't learn anything new other than this new Jedi. Again, very cool. And if he comes back in some way, very awesome. But I didn't learn nothing new from that whole sequence. You know what I'm saying? Like, at all. I already knew he was traumatized from it. It's cool to get a reminder, but like a 7-8 minute reminder. Maybe it was not that long. It could have been like 2 minutes, honestly. I don't remember. I don't know. I just feel like it really sucks to feel this way about this show. The Star Wars has always been serialized, and it's in terms of like, it's always been like a swashbuckling adventure where there's these moments in time and they're connected by adventures, and like things are always happening that stops them from their goal, and they got to solve this problem and then get back to the main goal. That's always been Star Wars, right? That's how New Hope is. Like the trash compactor. Oh, we got, that's nothing to do with the fucking plot, but it's like, here's 7 minutes. They have a problem to get out of, so they can do the thing. Yeah. So, but the thing is, those moments, they should reveal character, and they should do, but we're not, I mean, I know Mando's character. He hasn't changed one bit since whatever. And I don't feel like he wants to become a Mandalorian again, like, because like of something that's not within him. You know what I'm saying? Like, why does he want to become a Mandalorian? Like, I mean, other than he fought that one guy with the Darksaber in Book of Boba Fett, which is Jon Favreau's character, he didn't get shunned from the tribe. Like he wasn't in a situation where he needed help and they didn't come help him. And then he's like, fuck, I need a family. I don't have help anymore. Like
Yeah.
he just, I just need my tribe, but why? What's it done for? I mean, I get it. It's raised
I think
everything
they're
else,
just,
but
yeah. Does
does that make sense?
No, you're right.
There's
I
been
think
nothing.
The way I see it is like it's just weird storytelling in terms of pacing and like was it, I guess, season, is it season? No, it's in the book of Boba Fett where he like gets kicked out, right? Right? Is that the last is that episode of Book of Boba Fett? It's like half Mando getting kicked out and then he goes to get Yoda after that happens, or it could be wrong.
I don't remember. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't remember. I don't 100% remember.
But
when
whatever
it gets kicked
season where
out,
they were
again,
doing the flashbacks where they were showing him as a kid get rescued by a Mandalorian, like I guess they're just like, that's he just wants to be, it's like his dream has always been to be a Mandalorian since he was a kid and rescued by one. I mean, like that's just his perfect life. And so they see him accomplish
but what
that
he
by
wants is
episode
not interesting. 2
or 4. No, you're right. And yeah, it's such a weird thing. Like they tried to make it such a big deal to him that he got kicked out. Like this was like heartbreaking to him, but his journey to get back seemed relatively easy and quick and just kind of nonchalant in some ways. I guess, like, I don't know. It's not like he had to do any kind of big task. I mean, he got to the caves, but Bo-Katan rescued him from dying. I mean, like it's like, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. I mean, technically episode 4 was like an end of one of Mando's arcs, right? Like he lost his membership and he gained it back by episode 4, right? Like he presented the water, they welcomed him back. It didn't feel like it was an end of an arc. It didn't feel like any moment that was kind of special. It was more about Bo-Katan by that point than Mando. And it does just leave his character just kind of there for the rest of the season. You know, I'm sure Baby Yoda will be threatened in some way by the end of the season. Bad guy will kidnap him or try to hurt. Like he's going to like externally, right? Something's going to happen that's going to make Mando mad and take action, but it's going to be because it's happening to someone else, not to him. And it's not going to have any, at least at this point, seem to have any interesting internal motivator. And so you're right. It's just kind of emotionless. It feels like it's like, even when they just like, there was just some things that just irked me. Like when they did that wide shot of like all the Mandalorians, like training and stuff in the desert, it didn't look, I don't know. Like there's just something that it just feels like,
again, the volume just doesn't look as good when you're doing desert stuff. It just doesn't.
And here's the thing, guys. Not being at Tatooine doesn't matter if you're just on a planet that looks like Tatooine. Okay, like I get that they're like, oh yeah, we don't want to be on Tatooine.
Tatooine's safer too.
Criticism, huh?
Tatooine's safer too because there's no fucking, you're not on the shore. It's like monsters constantly taking your children away.
Apparently, yes, yeah.
You know?
I know. It's a little bit. It just feels like,
again,
the world building is mattering less and less, or every time they world build it, it gets less cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, there's interesting things. I'm like, like little tidbits you get, like, oh, you're the leading party, so you get to take off your helmet by the fire, you know. So like, you get to do that so no one else can see you, you know. And like, I think it'd be more interesting to figure out why they don't get to take their helmets off. Like, why is this a thing? Like, you know, like we don't really know that.
Why isn't Mando or someone like, why aren't we getting more about Mandalore? Like if we did, like that would have been if we need a flashback episode, do it on Mandalore. Let's actually see the guy that is like their Messiah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Let's actually like, I mean, and I like, you know, I played the Knights of the Old Republic games that came out in the mid 2000s, Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. Those take place in the previous Star Wars timeline, like only a few years after the Mandalorian Wars, right? And it was like a civil war that almost like destroyed the galaxy or something, or it was that, or they just tried to take over the galaxy. I can't remember which one, but it's like, you like in those games, you come across a lot of Mandalorians like in armor and in like some still trying to complete the mission. Some people didn't even know the war was like all this kind of cool stuff. And you really get like a really interesting sense. Like you can like, it's an RPG. So you got all these dialogue options. You get a lot of information about Mandalore and like why they liked him and why they do what they do. And I feel like we haven't gotten any of that in this show. And they're basing it around this like Mandalorian culture, who Mandalore is like the epicenter of. And like, yeah, I mean, like that would have been cool. Let's flash back to those times. Like this would be thousands of years ago. You know what I mean? Let's
that's such a good
snapshot
idea.
of Mandalore and what like it. I mean, honestly, that's how you open the fucking season. Like that's the opening sequence. Is you don't even know it's a flashback till the end of it, and it's just this like badass like motherfucking like Batman-esque like takedown of multiple enemies and like just like fucking wipes the floor. Maybe you think it's Mando at first, and then you realize, no, it's Mandalore. You know what I mean? And then we cut to the present. Like, I don't know, like that sets up me being interested in the Mandalorians and what's going to happen with them this season and stuff. Okay.
Why are you making a better show? I hate when we do this, Daniel. I hate when we make better shit because it's like we're not getting paid for it.
And we didn't try that hard.
Talking. Yeah. And we didn't try that hard. You're 100% right. I think this season, the impression I get is that they're trying to make it about the Mandalorians, their culture, the retaking or the reestablishing of Mandalore. Obviously, they have little things like the mythosaur they introduced. These things that a lot of fans already knew. But
what is the point? What is the relevance of a mythosaur in the culture? I mean, it's just a big dinosaur, or like it's an imaginary dinosaur, or like what did it have to do with Mandalore? Like it's like it was cool seeing a Godzilla underwater
part of it,
but I don't care.
I think part of it too is that they had him ride I can't think of the thing now, in Book of Boba Fett, a Rancor. They had him ride a Rancor, which is badass in Book of Boba Fett. So they're like, you know what? We want him to ride something bigger in season. You know what I'm saying? I think there's some kind of that thinking going on here. And I think you're 100% right. I think, again, season 1 and 2, there are issues where they're, we're here now. We got to save this people before we go do the next thing. I get that, but the focus, it always kind of still come back to Baby Yoda and Mando. And I still think the big problem of this season is that they should have really had Baby Yoda and Mando separated. It should have been that. It should have been. You could easily get you, instead of having an episode where you cut to Dr. Perishing, you can still do a thing like you book Bo-Katan and Mando, but you cut to Baby Yoda and Luke Skywalker doing that. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what you do, and that keeps your fucking attention for 30 minutes.
And it gives like Mando a very clear and like you feel aligned with Mando's arc. Because he wants Baby Yoda back. And we do too. We want to see Baby Yoda back with Mando. Like that would be great. That would be like an interesting journey for him to go on. And that's where I get back to this point I said earlier. Where just Disney Star Wars, they're great with production. They're great with casting. They're great with acting. But the ideas that they come into these series with, or at least like with Obi-Wan, the implementation of those ideas is so boring most of the time, and so like lifeless in terms of like, it's just like it doesn't feel like the best ideas winning in the room, and that is just like, and that then makes me think, well, what's at least not the most exciting, narratively interesting, emotionally like impactful ideas are winning. So what's probably winning? Well, probably the budget ideas, or the ideas that have to be there because you've got 10 different producers that are also working on probably 3 other different shows that, hey, for our show, we need this to happen in this season or something. I don't know. Like, I'm just speculating, but like, it's just,
I still feel like I still feel like it's Favreau. I mean, I think he really is
right.
Really pushing the ship. I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is really giving too many script notes on this kind of stuff. I mean, I really don't think that.
No,
I think Filoni is definitely. I think it's this weird thing where Filoni knows way more about Star Wars than Favreau does, but Favreau is the experienced filmmaker, quote unquote, like live action filmmaker, and so it's like
he makes his movies make money, and that's what.
Disney there's this thing of like, I feel like Filoni may even feel, I could be wrong, this is just my general thoughts. Filoni might feel a little bit like he might be like now mentor or mentorship with Favreau, and Favreau's like teaching, like kind of bringing him into the live action front. When the truth is like, no, Filoni, you did it already. Like you are George Lucas now, and they need to be listening to you, not the other way around. And I feel like Filoni is still there giving notes and pushing back a little bit because every time you see them too in a conversation, they always talk about, we're always sitting at a lunch table talking about ideas or whatever. And I feel like Filoni is still like treading water a little bit of not trying to push or offend too hard or whatever. And I think George Lucas was like, no, fuck you, I made Star Wars. Filoni don't have that bone in him just yet,
Right.
And
right.
even though
I agree.
he's contributing now to Star Wars just as much as George Lucas probably has,
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right. I think it definitely feels like Favreau's more of a company man. You know what I mean? Like he's gonna please his bosses before anybody else. Probably kind of. I don't know.
His boss is Kathleen Kennedy and Bob Iger. I mean, it's not.
But the way he presents in interviews, it's just so perfect, I guess, like in terms of just like he says every right thing. He's been doing it for
great.
For years
he's a
now,
great
you know
guy.
what I mean?
I love him. I love him. He's great.
He's really good on set. It seems like he's a good director.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And you're right. It does feel like maybe Filoni's more of the creative, and John's more of the production and the brass tacks and the everything else. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming they're probably co-writing in some.
Yeah,
we
could be totally wrong on this. I have no idea.
We could, and this is just you're right. I think this is probably based on like other relationships we're aware of in the industry, and like they work like this a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
But
very curious about Ahsoka when that's more Filoni's baby, and he's writing I think all the episodes. I think again, I don't know. I think season 1 and 2 they're slower burns, and I was always kind of like I want more faster. Right. But I think season 3 has just been like it's still a slow burn, but also I'm not getting what I wanted. What I always want is I either want two things. I either want I want to get the thing I want, or I want to get the thing I didn't know I wanted.
Yeah,
that's the two things, and I'm not really getting either one at the moment. I'm getting cool Star Wars stuff, but like I can, you can find cool Star Wars stuff in every Star Wars project. Period. I can find a cool thing in every single sequel trilogy movie. Easily.
There's a brand new Star Wars video game coming out next month that should be amazing. You know what I mean? The Star Wars as an IP still has good stuff in it. But it is this thing of like the Mandalorian feels kind of like their flagship right now in terms of just like
it's supposed to be,
and it is the fact that like those first two seasons, yes, they were slow burns, but they were also very focused, right? Like it was very much
more focused.
They had a pretty like the stakes were high, but for a few characters, like 2 or 3, right? And it was about their journeys and their arcs. And this season feels like this galaxy hopping thing that is about politics, and it's about like so much more than the characters we're actually watching on screen, right? Like I think that's the feeling of where it feels like this show's doing more work, trying to do more work for the universe at large than it is like the characters it's about. And that just feels sucky because we like those characters, and when it feels like they're getting not the focus, it's disappointing.
No, you're not wrong. Again, I think there's no better clear example of them scrambling because they didn't know what to do next than when they put an episode of The Mandalorian inside Book of Boba Fett and retconned in season 2. I can't imagine people who didn't watch Boba Fett and then who are watching this show, because Star Wars nerds, of course, we watched it all. I think, even though the Book of Fett is not that great, like it's not as a whole very good. Like I would say
you could just watch that episode by itself and probably be fine.
100%. I think Boba Fett's in the last 30 seconds of the episode, and he's like standing at a monitor. I don't think he says anything. I could be wrong, but I feel like I don't know. I just. That is a poor decision. It all goes back to that decision of keeping them together instead of having some balls. And then that's the thing. No one cares about them being together. They just care that Baby Yoda exists as a thing. If you see him
Yeah.
I get it. Luke Skywalker can't Mark Hamill every other episode, and you can't deep fake his face for 5 episodes.
I wouldn't
get
like
that
that either.
But you don't have to, though. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do that. You could have spread out all those Baby Yoda scenes amongst 3 episodes. You know what I'm saying? It could have been the first 4 episodes we're seeing that, and then something happens and Luke gets, he gets taken away. I know you could do anything, whatever. Who gives a fuck? You can figure it out. But anyway, it's a little disappointing. Last thing I'll say here, Daniel, is that Star Wars Celebration is around the corner pretty soon. And now we have reports that Damon Lindelof has been off. Now he's off the project. And
what? He's off the project? He was already...
That he was writing, yeah. And like, I guess they have either they're bringing, this is like all rumors, they're bringing in a writer to take over that particular movie or that new trilogy or whatever it is. And the rumor is that it's going to be focused around one of the sequel trilogy characters, or at least have one of the sequel trilogy characters in it, which I'm like, quit trying to make Rey a thing. People, no one wants it, not really.
I'd be okay with Finn.
Yeah. Or
Finn got
honestly
fucked over by the end of that sequel trilogy. He
did. I just don't see him coming back. I could be totally wrong.
You're actually probably right. You're right. The actor probably would never do.
I don't see him coming back unless they really said like, look, this is just about you and your journey. I don't see him coming back. He really got fucked over. I mean,
and he was
Rise of Skywalker being the most egregious
him in
thing.
Force
probably,
Awakens, man. He was like such a great new character, and he felt distinct, and he felt like a character for the younger generations that was like also cool, and kind of he was kind of comic relief too, but in a way that wasn't like stupid. You know what I mean? And I just think he kind of had a Han Solo.
He was great. He's a good actor,
and like he is, and like you're right. I want to see him like go on his own Jedi journey and like figure out who, like, he had the Force. We already know that. Like it just kind of like.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just it was sad. But so yes, I would take
his original arc. I was gonna say his original arc that Colin Trevorrow wrote for the Duel of the Fate script. Like it actually had an arc where he ended up like leading a rebellion of like ex stormtroopers against the Empire, or you know what I'm saying? Like he became the leader of these new ex stormtroopers, which is like, okay, cool. Anyway,
yes,
yep. Disney, quit trying to fix this stuff. Just go fucking 500 years in the future. Like let's forget about. Let the past die. Kill it if you have to, please.
Well, hopefully the reviews and the lack of like, I don't know. I will be interested to see how this season does, like numbers wise, compared to the first 2 seasons.
From what I understand, and again, it's really, I don't know how they get these numbers, but this is like the lowest it's ever been is for Mandalorian, like ratings wise.
Good. I mean, like that's the unfortunate thing is like that's the only thing Disney listens to is lack of numbers. And like it's like you hate to be rooting against shows that very talented people worked on, that like most of the writers probably for all these Star Wars shows are amazing. It's just that they can't write because they have so many people telling them what to do. They can't actually write good stuff, right? Like and so it's like it feels mean to be like, yeah, I hope these shows tank like reception wise and critically and especially financially, but like as a fan, that's the only route I see to like Disney making good shit. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the only thing they listen to is empty seats. The only thing they listen to is lack of return on money. And like, that's the problem. I think that was the fear everyone had with Disney being bought by, Star Wars being bought by Disney. But like, that's just, they're a megacorp. They're not there for the art or the entertainment. They're there for money. And so like, it sucks that like, the only way that they listen to like the only way they think the fans know what they're talking about is if the numbers match up with what the fans are saying or whatever. And I just think it sucks, but
you're right. I mean, you're right. You're 100% right. It's I mean, I hate to feel this way halfway through the season. I'm hoping they can make us feel like real big dummies.
Please.
Yeah, this is the worst we've been. This is the worst we've ever felt about Mandalorian. Like, because I've never felt bad about it ever. I've never felt bad about it until obviously I was like very concerned about Book of Boba Fett.
I didn't feel this way about Book of Boba Fett. I didn't feel this way about Book of Boba Fett because I didn't care. Like I didn't. It wasn't invested.
No, I know.
But I did. I would say I'm close to. I'm not quite where I am, but I'm close to how I was with Kenobi. Like Kenobi, I was mad because they took one of my favorite characters of all time and just fucking fluffed it in every, like, just fucking, like, just dropped every ball they could, it felt like. And it's like,
Yeah,
that made me so mad because like the potential was here and you did this down here. You know what I mean? This one is like, I'm like, I haven't given up hope. I still hope maybe they can make Mando cool again and make me think he's like one of my favorite characters in the universe. And he still is in
he's
like
still cool.
a
He's still
theoretical
badass.
way, but he's just not acting like the character that I kind of fell in love with. And it's just, we'll see. Again,
Yeah.
make me a fool. I hope that someone on Disney clips this and like shows it to their bosses by the end and be like, look, these idiots, just thinking that we don't know what we're doing. And voila, the perfect second half of the season that's ever existed.
I hope Favreau sends me a really rude email and tells me like, I'll never work in this industry. And like, here's why. And I hope they prove me wrong.
Absolutely.
I really do. All right, Daniel, how can our listeners write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/2for1mail and let us know what you thought of the first half of The Mandalorian season 3. Are you in our boat where you're just, you're in the boat, but you keep looking at the ocean and you keep, the waves actually look a little nicer than this boat. And you're just wondering how long is it going to be before you just jump off the boat and let it sink in the ocean somewhere in the middle of nowhere? Or is it just working for you? And like, you've never felt more seen by a show. I don't know how that would be possible, but maybe that's you. bit.ly/2for1mail. And you can let us know.
Never been more seen by a show. Mando season 3. That should be on a poster. My goodness.
I'm a person that specifically cuts myself up from all emotion. So this episode's just this season's just like ding, 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 ding. I hate feeling things. So I'm just like, give me dry, pointless action with faceless characters all day, baby.
Yeah, I hate when the Mandalorian comes onto the screen. Like, I just want more Dr. Pershing.
Yeah. And I love also how like they kind of worked in, but they were like, if we make Bo-Katan not want to take off her helmet, it really cuts down on the price of getting that actress in here. She can just do it like Pedro and just do her voice lines in 2 days, and then we're done. Again, maybe they'll make, I don't know, maybe she'll take it off again, but at this point it feels like maybe she won't, and then it's like she swung real hard to the other side, pretty quick.
She really did. And again, she swung hard on something we didn't see happen to her on this show. Like she swung hard, like she lost all her people. We never saw it happen. She just soaking in a castle.
Perfect opportunity for a great flashback. Let's see what happened with Bo-Katan. Like, depict one of the scenes from the Clone Wars in live action. That's like, people would go fucking nuts just because you like literally like adapted actual, like almost like beat for beat a scene and you made it like just as cool as the like, woo! Like I'm getting shivers just thinking about it. That would be so fucking awesome.
I get it. I get it. Oh, one thing I did think, Daniel, and we'll get off here.
Sure.
Do they have sex with the helmets on?
Do they have sex at all? I mean, like, I guess they have kids.
Because he called him dad, and I was like, oh, I guess they have kids, which means they have partners, which means, I think they do, unless they're just like all like a Jango Fett situation.
Orphans.
Guys, like,
yeah.
Well, like, yeah, I mean, obviously they could be just foundlings. Like, maybe that's another piece of it too. Like, that could have been interesting. Like, we could explore the interpersonal relationships of how the culture thrives. Like, you know what I mean? Like, again, like, there's an easy thing there. Oh, well, if you claim someone as your partner, I say claim as in like, this is me talking tribal talk. I'm making shit up now. Claim someone as your partner and you guys are intertwined ritualistically or whatever, then you can take off your helmet just to that person only and it's okay. I'd like to know that. Like, give me that kind of information. Like, that sounds like
real
interesting
risky who
stuff.
You marry, though, right? Like, it's just a total surprise if they're attractive at all. until you like have married them and are about to have babies.
Yeah. And guess what? That could be a great emotional moment.
That could.
Submit.
And another thing I've been thinking about for a while with the tribe, and I was really thinking about it with this season some, is like, it would be really cool if one of these was like a clone, and like a clone that
100%.
you know got away, was like, you know, even if it's one of like the clones from the Bad Batch, not the Bad Batch, the other clones from the Clone Wars show that showed up in Rebels and stuff.
Yeah.
They're like somehow fucked with their inhibitor chip, whatever thing. And they felt like the only thing they could do is try to be what their cloned father was once. You know what I mean? Like that would have been like, just make the characters in the tribe more interesting other than just like faceless minigun guy with son. I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. I'm just kind of rambling on all the ways that I wish the show was better at this point. Like, there's no.
I mean, like everyone freaked out having Tamora Morrison as a hobo in Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's like you could do that in every Star Wars show, and everyone would love it. Like, and just pay the man, and he can't be that expensive. Sure, he
would do it, and it's like, to be fair, those roles won't take a lot of dynamic acting range, and he can probably do it. You know what I mean? It's like Tamora Morrison. I love him. I haven't seen him do anything that's like, wow, that's good acting. But like, those roles don't matter. He's like
he's that character.
Exactly. And you just need.
It doesn't matter.
You don't need them to anchor the episode. You just need them to be around like that.
Yeah. I agree. Again, it's just like, I mean.
It's like all the ways that they build the world, they just feel so like motivated by other things other than like, how cool would this be? Right? Like, you know what I mean? It's like,
I think there is that. I mean, I think 100% that, and they say all the time, they're like playing with their action figures, but they just don't play as well as I play. That's the problem.
I get it. I mean, it's like, we're not that unique, right? Like, we aren't that, like, there's other people that are really good and like creative like us that grew up with Star Wars and Star Wars toys. It's like, we're not the only ones that have the answers. I'm sure there's like a lot of people that could fix this show and this series and Disney Star Wars pretty effectively if they had the power and the position to. But
I agree.
Yeah, and it is just that thing of like, every time we build the world, well, it's, you know, in Lucas, like with the prequels, it's like, and especially with the Clone Wars, like the world building was just like what would be awesome, you know. And this one, it feels like, well, we got to build the world in a way that serves a purpose for us in some way. Like, either we're world building in a way to like fix the prequels or sequels, or we're world building a way to like serve some other show, or even sometimes world building in a way to like serve some sort of like social justice narrative or something. It just so much of the time it just feels like this is not. I mean, a big part of it is that you had previously one man making all the decisions, good or bad. Sure, it felt like one universe for the most part. Felt like one vision.
Yeah, and now you don't. I mean, you have Andor showrunners. You have
probably multiple committees, like multiple levels of committees are in charge of these. Yeah.
You have Filoni, you have Favreau, Kathleen Kennedy doing her thing. You have these other Star Wars sequels trying to get off the ground. Bob Iger coming in, shaking things up that just from Chet Peck and his orders. I mean, like, you have so many
sounded
things
like they were bad. I mean, it sounds like Chet Peck made things worse for a little while, at least narratively.
It may have been, but it's still people changing mid gear of a direction, and you know what I'm saying, like. That's the danger versus where just George Lucas is financing this, maybe not even independently, but like no one's telling George Lucas, again, good or bad. You can't do that. He's like, I'm doing it because I want to do it, and you're gonna fucking like it or you're not. You know,
I'm George Lucas. I made Star Wars. You know,
I made Star Wars.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of people don't like the prequel trilogy. I get it. You know, but I think they like it way more now, especially after Disney has done their thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and this is something we've repeated, right? And I think it's worth saying again, though, like the problem with the prequel trilogy was execution. There was some poor dialogue. There was some poor directing of dialogue. There was poor acting, right?
Poor acting.
And who knows whether that was more the director or the actor's fault, but probably both.
Sure.
Right.
Or the dialogue.
Exactly. And so like
Yeah.
but the ideas that started it, the vision behind it was, in my opinion, almost flawless. Like the idea of what he wanted to do with these series, the level of political layers to everything, and like I love that the fact that the prequel trilogy spanned like 15 years even. I love that. Like that's amazing.
It's
and
an
like
epic. It's an opera.
Epic.
It's an opera.
Yes. And it feels epic in like every time we get to a new planet, it's just some new imagination that you couldn't have expected. Like Disney would never come up with the clone people on the cloning planet that I can't think of the name of, like the tall, like alien looking people, or like there's just so many things that just come from genuine creative inspiration or a moment of, oh, what about this? You know what I mean? And like, that's
typically sequel to Star Wars is just regurgitating George's ideas, like the same there's different, obviously we see different monsters, different characters, but a lot of it is just, and obviously you have to, because you want people to like it, right? But it doesn't feel like we've I mean, the Mandalorian is Boba Fett from Return of the Jedi and from Empire, just, you know what I mean? Like that's what that is from George Lucas, you know? So like they had the opportunity to make a whole new character that's just as cool or looks cooler than Boba Fett. I mean, it's not that hard.
No.
I could sit here, and it might take me a long time, but draw a character that's going to be like pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that. I bet people could be cool if you make him a badass and comes in and saves somebody to make a spinoff show. And you know what I mean? Like you do all kinds of shit. Oh, yeah. You can do anything. It's Star Wars.
Right. You had a blank. That's the problem. You had a blank canvas and endless amounts of money. Yeah. And that's what you did. So yeah. We could keep singing the songs of our despair about Star Wars IP for a long time. That's because it means that much to us. I mean, like that, I know for both of us, it was such a pivotal part of growing up and having an imagination as a kid. Half of my imagination time was spent in an imaginary Star Wars world. You know what I mean? And so like, it does feel like it was a friend growing up. You know what I mean? Like the world of Star Wars was a friend to a lot of kids, especially me. And so, it is like, it's hard not to care a lot about
Star Wars. The discourse of Star Wars is to me just as important as Star Wars. As talking about Star Wars, like talking about the things you love and connecting with somebody through that thing.
Yes.
That's almost more important than the thing you're talking about to me.
Yes.
So anyway, so that's why I'm glad we do this. Anyway, we've already said our goodbyes, everybody. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week. My name is Donovan Thompson.
I am Daniel Wingfield.
In the words of the Mandalorian, actually, Mandalorian don't say this. The other guy said it, who's Nick Nolte. Can't think of his name, but he's
Nick
fucking
Nolte
awesome.
said it. Yep.
We have spoken.